Chaos feels like the new normal, but you are not the first to face it. Nearly 2,000 years ago, a Roman emperor ruled over an empire, collapsing into war and plague. His name was Marcus Aurelius, and his private journal reveals a startling secret for finding peace. He wrote, "You have a fortress inside you, an inner citadel that no external chaos can ever breach." This is not about escaping your problems, but about transforming them into a source of profound clarity. By the end of this, you will possess a specific set of mental tools to turn your own turmoil into tranquil strength. We will uncover how a man surrounded by death and betrayal cultivated an unshakable mind. How did he manage to see opportunity where others saw only disaster? What single shift in perspective could change everything for you today? What does your own inner fortress look like? Your biggest worry right now feels all-consuming, does it not? Marcus Aurelius faced entire armies and a plague that threatened to wipe out his civilization. His first tool for mental clarity was a practice he called the view from above. This is not about ignoring your problems, but about seeing them in their proper size. He would deliberately shift his perspective, mentally rising above the chaos of his camp, above the battlefields of the Marcomannic Wars, until he saw the entire Roman Empire as a mere speck on the globe. He would then zoom out further, contemplating the earth itself as a tiny blue-green orb suspended in the vast, silent expanse of the cosmos. He wrote in his meditations, "Remember how brief is the reign of any single life, a mere whisper in the sweep of eternity, and how small the patch of ground you fight over truly is." This mental exercise was not meant to make his struggles feel meaningless, but to drain the panic and urgency from them. By seeing his life from this cosmic vantage point, the blustering threats of enemies and the weight of imperial decisions were reduced to their true scale. This cultivated a powerful detachment, not from his responsibilities, but from the turbulent emotions that sought to overwhelm his judgment. The fear did not disappear, but it lost its power to control him. So what situation in your own life would look entirely different if you saw it from this broader, cosmic perspective? That argument, that financial pressure, that personal failure, how much of its weight comes not from the event itself, but from the intense, close-up focus you are giving it? Marcus Aurelius did not just endure chaos, he learned to love it. This is the heart of the second principle, a concept later called Amor Fati, which translates to a love of one's fate. For the Stoic, this was not passive resignation. It was the active, courageous choice to embrace everything life throws at you, the good and the bad, as if you had chosen it yourself. It is the profound understanding that every event, especially hardship, is not an obstacle on your path but an essential part of the path itself. It is the raw material for building your character. While leading his legions against invading tribes and managing an empire ravaged by the Antonine Plague, Marcus did not curse his misfortune. He saw these horrific events as the very fire in which his strength, his justice, and his self-control could be forged. He wrote in his meditations, "A blazing fire makes flame and brightness out of everything that is thrown into it." The philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche, who championed this idea centuries later, put it perfectly when he wrote, "My formula for greatness in a human being is Amor Fati, that one wants nothing to be different, not forward, not backward, not in all eternity." Think of a modern parallel. A sudden job loss feels like a catastrophe. It brings fear, uncertainty, and a blow to your identity. But through the lens of Amor Fati, this event is reframed. It is not a disaster to be mourned, but a forced opportunity, a necessary push from the universe to leave a stagnant career and finally pursue a passion you had buried. The closed door forces you to find a new, more authentic path you might never have chosen on your own. The difficulty itself contains the seed of a better future. So here is a challenge for you. Can you identify one recent difficulty in your life, one piece of bad news, one personal setback, and consciously reframe it as a potential gift? What hidden strength could it be asking you to develop? What new direction might it be subtly pointing you toward? This shift from resistance to acceptance is where you begin to find power in your pain. Is your stress caused by the event itself, or by your judgment of it? This question lies at the very core of the third principle Marcus Aurelius wielded, the discipline of perception. He understood that our suffering rarely stems from the raw events of our lives, but almost always from the labels and stories we attach to them. It is not the rain that ruins your day, but your belief that a sunny day would have been better. For Marcus, this mental discipline was his first and most crucial line of defense. He trained himself to intercept his initial, automatic judgments about any situation, especially the difficult ones. He wrote in his meditations that the universe is change, our life is what our thoughts make it. He practiced seeing every interruption, every setback, not as a personal catastrophe, but as a chance to exercise a specific virtue. An annoying person became an opportunity to practice patience. A military defeat became a chance to cultivate resilience. A painful loss became a moment to deepen his understanding of impermanence. He continually reminded himself that there is nothing either good or bad, but thinking makes it so. His teacher, the philosopher Epictetus, put it even more bluntly when he wrote, "Men are disturbed not by things, but by the views which they take of them." Consider a simple, modern scenario. You are stuck in traffic, late for an important meeting. Your default perception labels this as a bad thing, a disaster. Your heart rate climbs, you grip the steering wheel, and your mind spirals into frustration and anxiety. Now, apply the discipline of perception. The traffic jam is a neutral fact. It is not inherently good or bad. Your judgment is what makes it stressful. What if you chose to see it differently? This delay is not a catastrophe, it is an opportunity. It is a forced pause, a 10-minute window to listen to a favorite piece of music, to collect your thoughts before the meeting, or simply to practice patience and acceptance in a situation you cannot control. The event has not changed, but your entire experience of it transforms. So, what is one situation you are currently judging as bad that you could choose to see neutrally, or even as a hidden opportunity for growth? Yet, even with the right perspective, the mind can still be pulled into the anxieties of what might happen tomorrow or the regrets of yesterday. The empire was a sprawling machine of future plans and past mistakes, but Marcus Aurelius anchored himself in a fourth principle, the profound power of the present moment. He understood that while the past is a ghost and the future a dream, the present is the only reality we ever truly possess. In the midst of strategic meetings, reports of plague deaths, and the distant clash of swords, he trained his mind to focus like a laser on the single, simple task directly in front of him. He wrote in his meditations, "Do not let the future disturb you, for you will arrive there if you arrive with the same reason you apply now to the present." Each moment he was given was not for fretting over the entire war, but for sharpening a single sword, for reading one dispatch, for offering one clear order. The weight of an empire was too heavy to carry all at once, so he carried only the weight of the current hour. This is the essence of Stoic mindfulness, a radical focus on the here and now. Think about your own modern battlefield, perhaps a stressful workday. Your inbox is overflowing, deadlines are looming, and your calendar is a minefield of future obligations. The anxiety comes from trying to mentally solve all of it at once. But what if, like Marcus, you focused only on the present task? You are not writing the entire report. You are simply writing this one sentence. You are not clearing the entire inbox. You are just answering this single email. By narrowing your world to the one action you can take right now, you drain the chaos of its power. The present moment is a small, manageable space, a quiet room in the noisy mansion of your life. So right now, what is one thing within your control that you can focus on completely, setting aside future anxieties? It might be the feel of your breath, the words you are reading, or the next single, small step in your day. There is a fortress that no army can ever breach and no plague can ever infect. Marcus Aurelius called this sanctuary the Inner Citadel, a mental stronghold built not of stone, but of character and reason. While the outer world of his empire crumbled into war and disease, he would retreat into this private space to reclaim his clarity. He wrote in his meditations, people look for retreats for themselves in the country, by the sea, or in the hills, but this is altogether unphilosophical, when you can at any moment retreat into yourself. Nowhere can you find a more peaceful and less busy retreat than in your own soul. This was his ultimate refuge, a place where his judgments remained his own, and his virtue could not be corrupted by external chaos. He was not hiding from his duties, but fortifying himself to perform them with wisdom and justice. The Inner Citadel is not a physical location, but a state of mind you cultivate through disciplined practice. It is the part of you that remains calm and resolute when a project at work suddenly collapses or a personal relationship faces a difficult test. Imagine a colleague loses their temper in a meeting, their voice rising and accusations flying. Your own instinct might be to react with equal anger or to shrink back in fear, but from within your inner citadel, you can observe the outburst without being consumed by it. You see the other person's frustration not as a personal attack, but as a storm happening outside your walls. This allows you to respond with a clear head and a steady voice, to escalating the conflict rather than fueling it. Your inner peace becomes your greatest source of power. So where is your inner citadel, and how can you begin to strengthen its walls today? It might be found in 5 minutes of silent breathing before your day begins, in a conscious pause before sending a reactive email, or in the simple reaffirmation that your worth is not determined by the chaos swirling around you. This unshakable core is always there, waiting for you to step inside and take command. Think of a person you deeply admire for their strength of character. Marcus Aurelius made a habit of this very practice, a principle known as the contemplation of the sage. In moments of turmoil and immense pressure, he would not simply rely on his own reasoning. He would mentally call upon the examples of virtuous figures from history and from his own life, asking himself how they would act with wisdom and justice. He kept a mental council of advisors, not for military strategy, but for moral guidance. One of his most important role models was his predecessor and adoptive father, Antoninus Pius. Marcus wrote extensively about his qualities, his calm demeanor in all circumstances, his unwavering sense of duty, and his profound integrity. He would ask himself, what would Antoninus do when faced with a betraying general, or when receiving news of another city lost to the plague? This was not about imitation, but about internalizing the highest standards of conduct. He wrote in his meditations, "Never forget that you are the pupil of these great men, and that your task is to be their equal." The idea is to borrow another's virtue until your own is strong enough to stand alone. You can apply this same mental tool today. Who is your sage, the person whose judgment you trust completely? It could be a historical leader, a beloved family member, or even a fictional character of great principle. When you are next faced with a difficult choice, a moment of anger, or a surge of anxiety, pause and bring this person to mind. Ask yourself the most powerful question you can pose in a crisis. If the person I most admire were standing in my shoes right now, what would they do? Your inner citadel gains an entire garrison when you invite such wisdom inside. What if imagining the worst-case scenario could actually make you calmer? This is the heart of the seventh principle, a Stoic exercise known as Premeditatio Malorum, the premeditation of evils. Far from being a pessimistic practice, it is a powerful form of psychological inoculation. By deliberately and rationally visualizing potential losses, setbacks, and hardships, you systematically drain them of their power to shock you when they occur. Marcus Aurelius constantly practiced this. Leading an empire on the brink, he did not shy away from thoughts of military defeat, political betrayal, or the death of his own children. He would walk himself through these scenarios in his mind, not to feed anxiety, but to accept their possibility and prepare his response. He wrote, "Begin each day by telling yourself, 'Today I shall be meeting with interference, ingratitude, insolence, disloyalty, ill will, and selfishness.'" By doing so, he was not cursing his fate, he was building a buffer against disappointment. The philosopher Seneca, another Stoic master, captured the practice perfectly when he wrote, "He who has anticipated the coming of troubles takes away their power when they arrive." The goal is to separate the event itself from the panic of surprise. When you have already accepted that a business venture might fail, or a loved one might speak harshly, the sting of that reality is significantly lessened. You have already lived through it in your mind, and you have a plan for how to endure it with virtue. Try a simple modern exercise. You have a difficult conversation looming, perhaps with your boss or a family member. Instead of hoping for the best and dreading the worst, spend a few minutes honestly visualizing it going poorly. Imagine them rejecting your ideas or responding with anger. Then mentally register your calm, principled response. You do not escalate, you do not crumble, you simply listen and respond with dignity. By premeditating this adversity, you are not inviting it, you are disarming it. Your fear of the event loses its control over you because you have already faced its darkest outcome in the safe space of your own mind. So what is one specific fear you can begin to disarm today by honestly imagining and accepting its worst possible result? The single most important Stoic distinction is between what is and is not within our power. While his legions fought for survival, Marcus Aurelius anchored his mind in this simple, brutal truth. He could not command a barbarian chieftain to surrender, nor could he will the plague to vanish. These colossal events were outside his control. His power resided solely in his own judgments, his choices, and his actions in response to the chaos. He wrote that we cannot choose our external circumstances, but we can always choose how we respond to them. This is the essence of the dichotomy of control, a principle he learned from the teachings of his predecessor, Epictetus, who stated it with perfect clarity. Some things are up to us and some things are not up to us. Our opinions, impulses, desires, and aversions are within our power. Our bodies, our property, our reputations, and our public offices are not. For a man burdened with the fate of an empire, this was a liberation. It was a permission slip to stop wasting mental energy fretting over the uncontrollable, and to pour every ounce of his focus into what he could actually influence, his own character and his duty. Think of a simple, everyday worry like a looming storm on the day of an important outdoor event. You cannot control the clouds, you cannot stop the rain. That is not within your power, but you can control your preparation. You can arrange for a tent. You can have a backup plan indoors. You can choose to maintain a positive attitude despite the inconvenience. The storm is external. Your response is entirely your own. This mental sorting is the first step toward tranquility. So take a moment and make a quick list. In your current challenge, what is truly up to you and what is not? Your effort is yours to command, but the final outcome may not be. Your honesty is yours to give, but another person's reaction is theirs alone. By drawing this line, you reclaim your energy from the vast, exhausting territory of things you cannot change, and you concentrate it where it truly matters, on the one small, powerful kingdom of your own mind. The world tells you that success is wealth, status, and comfort. Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man in that world, saw these as distractions at best and traps at worst. For him, the only thing that was truly, unequivocally good was the quality of his own character. He called this virtue, and it was the unshakable foundation upon which he built his entire life. Nothing else could be counted as a genuine success, and nothing else could constitute a real failure. He wrote in his meditations that the fruit of this life is a good character and acts for the common good. Everything else is just leaves on the tree, temporary and ultimately unimportant. This radical belief was his compass through the empire's darkest hours. It meant that whether he was celebrating a military victory or mourning the loss of another city to the plague, his inner scorecard remained the same. Was he acting with wisdom, with justice, with courage, and with self-control? These four cardinal virtues were his sole focus. External events, what the Stoics called indifference, could be preferred or dispreferred, but they could never touch the core of who he was. His power could not corrupt him because true power was found in his integrity, not his imperial title. His misfortunes could not break him because his worth was not tied to his circumstances. A quote often attributed to the Stoics captures this perfectly: "Virtue is the sole good." Think of a modern parallel. You work for months on a crucial project, pouring your heart into it, only to have it ultimately rejected. The conventional view labels this a failure, a source of frustration and self-doubt. But through the lens of virtue as the sole good, the outcome is secondary. The real success lies in how you conducted yourself during the process. Did you work with diligence and honesty? Did you treat your colleagues with respect? Did you persevere with courage when obstacles arose? If you can answer yes, then you achieved the only kind of success that truly lasts, regardless of the external result. Your fulfillment comes from the person you became in the effort, not from the trophy you did or did not receive. So in your current struggles, how can you shift your focus from getting a specific result to simply being a good person? How can you prioritize acting with integrity over achieving a particular outcome? Your most painful reactions begin not with an event, but with the story you tell yourself about it. This is the final cornerstone of Marcus Aurelius's inner fortress, the practice of objective judgment. He understood that our raw, emotional interpretations are the very fuel that turns a spark of trouble into a raging fire. Before strategizing against a Germanic tribe or evaluating a senator's loyalty, his first task was to strip the situation of all the loaded words and dramatic labels his mind wanted to apply. He trained himself to see not an insult, but simply words spoken by a person. He saw not a catastrophe, but a logistical challenge requiring a solution. He wrote in his meditations, "Strip away the legend that encrusts it, and see the thing for what it really is. Remember what it is that you see, and describe what you have seen without the added interpretation." This is the discipline of perceiving the bare facts, the neutral components of any situation, before your emotions have a chance to color them. A military report might say, "We have lost a cavalry unit. The enemy is advancing." The emotional judgment screams, "This is a disaster. We are doomed." Marcus would force himself to see only the facts. 500 horses are gone. The enemy force has moved 3 miles closer. By removing the words disaster and doomed, he removed the panic that paralyzed clear thinking. leaving only a set of problems to be solved with a calm and rational mind. You can apply this same mental filter to the chaos of your own life. That email from your boss that made your heart sink, the one you labeled as harsh and critical. Try redescribing it with pure objectivity. The email contained 2 sentences. The first sentence noted the deadline was missed. The second sentence requested a meeting tomorrow at 10 a.m. See how the emotional charge begins to dissipate when you remove the loaded words. The facts are simple. Your interpretation was the source of the stress. So here is your challenge. Can you take one stressful thought from your day, one situation you are dreading, and perform this simple surgery? Strip it of all emotional language, all judgments of good and bad. Describe it to yourself using only neutral, observable facts. What remains is not a monster, but a simple set of circumstances, and it is there, in that clear space, that your true power to respond with clarity begins. Death is the one appointment every single one of us will keep. Marcus Aurelius did not hide from this stark reality. He actively invited it into his daily thoughts. This is the 11th principle, Memento Mori, the remembrance of death. For him, this was not a dark obsession, but a profound tool for creating a life of urgent purpose. While managing a war that stretched for years and a plague that emptied cities, he constantly reminded himself of his own mortality. He wrote in his meditations, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." This practice was not meant to terrify, but to clarify. The certainty of death made every single day precious, and every hour a gift not to be squandered on pettiness or procrastination. It drained the importance from trivial arguments and inflated egos, and poured that energy into what truly mattered, acting with virtue and fulfilling his duty to his people. Seneca, his Stoic predecessor, captured this spirit perfectly, stating that he who has learned how to die has unlearned how to be a slave. The fear of death is the ultimate master, and by making peace with it, you become free. Imagine how differently you would approach your day if you carried this awareness gently in your mind. That simmering resentment from a minor disagreement would lose its grip. The anxiety over a future event you cannot control would soften into acceptance. The time you have with loved ones would feel more vivid and immediate. Memento Mori is the ultimate perspective shifter, transforming the mundane into the meaningful. So here is a question to sit with for a moment. If you knew your time was genuinely limited, what one trivial worry, what single source of resentment or fear would you immediately release from your grasp? Resistance to reality is a silent war we wage against the world, and it is a war we can never win. Marcus Aurelius understood this with startling clarity. For him, acceptance was not a weakness, not a passive surrender to circumstance. It was an active and courageous choice to stop arguing with what is already true. He saw the relentless barbarian invasions, the spread of the plague, even the betrayals of trusted advisors, not as injustices to be railed against, but as the given conditions of his time, the very landscape upon which he was destined to build his character. He wrote that a man does not sin by commission, but by omission, by failing to accommodate himself to what must be. To struggle against the necessary events of life is like a foot complaining that it must walk or a hand that it must grasp. He learned to yield to the flow of nature's will, not by giving up, but by aligning his own efforts with the current of reality itself. Think of a modern moment of pure frustration, like being stuck on a delayed flight. You can sit there fuming, mentally cursing the airline, your blood pressure rising with every passing minute. This is resistance. It changes nothing about the grounded aircraft, but it fills your body with stress and ruins your next few hours. Acceptance looks entirely different. You look at the delay notification, you take a breath, and you acknowledge the simple, unchangeable fact: the flight is late. This is now the reality. With that acceptance, your energy is freed. You can pull out a book you have been meaning to read. You can call a friend. You can simply watch the other travelers and rest. The situation has not changed, but your entire experience of it has transformed from one of suffering to one of peace. So here is the pivotal question for you. What single reality are you currently fighting against in your own life? Is it a difficult health diagnosis, a strained relationship, a financial setback? What would happen if, just for today, you stopped resisting it and simply acknowledged it as the current truth of your situation? Acceptance does not mean you like it. It only means you are no longer wasting your strength in a futile battle against what already is. This clear-eyed embrace of reality is the solid ground from which all meaningful action can finally begin. A philosophy of inner strength is never meant to be hoarded in isolation. While Marcus Aurelius cultivated an unshakable mind within his inner citadel, its ultimate purpose was to serve the world outside its walls. His entire practice of Stoicism was oriented toward a single, guiding principle: acting for the common welfare. The chaos of the Marcomannic Wars and the devastation of the Antonine Plague were not just personal trials, they were collective crises demanding a leader's full devotion. He saw his own hardships as trivial when weighed against his duty to his people. He wrote a line that echoes through the centuries: "You were made for community, not to indulge your own sorrows." This profound sense of purpose, this connection to something far larger than himself, was the engine that drove him forward on the most difficult days. While other emperors might have retreated to the safety and luxury of Rome, Marcus spent years on the dangerous northern frontier, living in military camps and sharing the burdens of his soldiers. He sold off imperial treasures to fund the war and support victims of the plague, prioritizing the empire's survival over his own personal wealth. His private journal reveals a man constantly checking his motivations, asking himself if his actions were for the benefit of the human community. This focus transformed his suffering. It gave it meaning. His personal clarity was not an end in itself, but a tool for creating order and justice in a world descending into disorder. You can find this same transformative power in your own life, on a smaller but no less vital scale. Think of a time when your team at work was struggling under a heavy deadline. If your focus is solely on your own stress and workload, the situation feels overwhelming and unfair. But if you shift your perspective to ask how you can help the team succeed, your personal anxiety begins to dissolve into purposeful action. You stay late to help a colleague, you offer encouragement, you focus on solutions rather than complaints. The challenge itself has not changed, but your experience of it is completely different because you are now acting for a common good. So here is a question to carry with you. In the middle of your current challenge, how could shifting your focus from what is in it for me to how can I help fundamentally change the weight you feel, and perhaps even reveal a path forward you had not yet seen? Our problems often feel like they will last forever, yet a human life is astonishingly brief. Marcus Aurelius kept this stark contrast at the forefront of his mind, using the undeniable shortness of life as a lens to filter out the trivial and magnify the essential. He watched years of his reign consumed by war and plague, a powerful reminder that time was a resource more precious than any imperial treasure. He wrote that time is a river, a violent current of events, glimpsed once and already carried past us, and another follows and is gone. In another poignant reflection, he noted, "You may forget how small the total of it all is, the little plot of time assigned to each of us, how swiftly it vanishes into eternity." This awareness was not a morbid fixation, but a clarifying force. It helped him see that a senator's petty insult or a minor bureaucratic delay were not worth a moment of his inner peace. The energy spent on resentment or frustration was energy stolen from his duty to act with justice and wisdom. The shortness of life demanded that he invest his limited days only in what truly held weight. This is a practical tool you can use right now. When you feel yourself getting tangled in a heated argument online or simmering over a perceived slight, pause and ask yourself a simple, grounding question. Is the thing you are most worried about right now going to matter in a year? Will it hold any significance in 5 years? That mental filter instantly separates the fleeting annoyance from the lasting concern. It guides you to pour your finite time and emotional energy into building relationships, practicing your virtues, and taking meaningful actions, while letting the small grievances of the day wash away as the inconsequential noise they are. The roar of the crowd is a fickle thing, as changeable as the wind. For Marcus Aurelius, the praise of the Roman people one day could turn into vicious blame the next, especially as the empire's fortunes darkened with war and plague. Senators whispered against him, provincial governors questioned his strategies, and public opinion swung wildly with every piece of news from the frontier. In this storm of judgment, he cultivated a quality the Stoics saw as essential for any leader: equanimity. This is a steady, unshakable calm in the face of both flattery and insult. It was not that he ignored what people said, but that he refused to let their words dictate his inner state or his principles. His compass was his own virtue, not the shifting winds of popularity. He wrote that the praise of others adds nothing to your own worth, and their blame takes nothing away. His teacher Epictetus put it even more bluntly, stating that if anyone should tell you that a certain person speaks ill of you, do not make excuses about what is said, but answer, "He was ignorant of my other faults, else he would not have mentioned these alone." Imagine the modern echo of this in the glare of a digital screen. You post an idea or complete a project, and the comments roll in, a mix of glowing praise and harsh, anonymous criticism. Your heart might leap with the positive comments and sink with the negative ones, your entire mood becoming a puppet on the strings of other people's keyboards. Equanimity is the practice of cutting those strings. You learn to observe both the praise and the blame as external weather, noticing them without letting them storm inside your mind. The work itself, its quality and your integrity in creating it, remains unchanged by their opinions. So ask yourself this: whose praise or criticism has an outsized influence on your sense of self-worth? Is it your boss, a particular family member, the faceless crowd online? And what one small step could you take today to practice a little more independence from their verdict, to anchor your value in your own actions rather than their applause or their scorn? A Stoic maxim echoes across 2,000 years: the obstacle is the way. For Marcus Aurelius, this was not a clever saying but the operating system for his entire reign. He did not see the invading Germanic tribes or the ravages of the plague as problems to be eliminated, so he could finally begin his real work. They were the very substance of his work, the raw material provided by fate to forge his strength, his patience, and his resilience. Each setback was a training ground, and every enemy was an unwilling instructor in the art of endurance. He wrote in his meditations, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." The constant threat of betrayal did not make him paranoid, it trained him in discernment. The logistical nightmare of supplying a distant army did not break his spirit, it honed his problem-solving to a razor's edge. The grief of losing his own children amidst the public tragedy of the plague did not destroy him, it deepened his capacity for compassion. He was actively using the friction of a collapsing world to polish his own character. Think of a modern professional failure, a project that did not get funded or a promotion that went to someone else. The conventional reaction is disappointment and a sense of defeat. But through the lens of the obstacle is the way this event is reframed. The rejection is not a stop sign, it is a detour sign pointing you toward a crucial lesson. It becomes the fuel that forces you to honestly assess your skills, to innovate your approach, or to develop a thicker skin against disappointment. The setback itself becomes the necessary training you would never have signed up for, but which ultimately makes you more capable. So look directly at the challenge directly in front of you. What single obstacle, whether a difficult person or a stubborn problem, can you stop resisting and start using? How can you reframe this very blockage as an opportunity to practice a specific virtue you need, like patience, creativity, or unwavering courage? The barrier is not in your path, it has become your path. Gratitude was a fortress gate deliberately swung open each day to let the light in. For Marcus Aurelius, this was not a passive feeling of thankfulness when things went well, but an active, disciplined practice of seeking out reasons for appreciation, especially when they were hardest to find. In the grim routine of a military campaign, surrounded by death and uncertainty, he would force his mind to list the things he was grateful for. He wrote of his gratitude for his grandfather's model of a good character, for his mother's piety and generosity, and even for the difficult people in his life who taught him patience and tolerance. He saw this as a direct countermeasure to the despair that threatened to engulf him, a way to actively refocus his mind on the good that persisted even in the empire's darkest hour. The philosopher Seneca, his Stoic counterpart, captured the power of this practice perfectly, writing that gratitude is not only the greatest of virtues, but the parent of all the others. This is because a grateful heart cannot simultaneously be a fearful or resentful one. It shifts your entire field of vision from what you lack to what you possess, from what is attacking you to what is supporting you. You can begin this discipline today with a simple exercise. Each evening, as your day concludes, take a quiet moment to mentally list 3 specific things you are genuinely grateful for. The key is to be concrete. Do not just say you are grateful for your family. Name the sound of your child's laughter or the supportive text message a friend sent you. Do not just say you are grateful for your health. Be thankful for the taste of your morning coffee or the feeling of your legs carrying you on a walk. And most importantly, follow the Stoic lead by finding one thing within a current difficulty to be grateful for. That stressful project at work is also an opportunity to prove your competence. That argument with a loved one is a chance to practice communication and forgiveness. This practice requires your attention, training it to spot the threads of good woven into the fabric of even the most challenging days. So we return to you right where you are. What 3 things, even within a current difficulty, can you find to be genuinely grateful for right now? Our deepest cravings and our sharpest fears are the twin architects of our inner turmoil. We exhaust ourselves reaching for pleasures that forever seem to slip through our fingers, and we waste precious energy fleeing from pains that inevitably find us. Marcus Aurelius recognized this fundamental source of suffering, and he wielded a powerful discipline to master it, the deliberate realignment of his desires and his aversions. A Stoic does not try to eliminate wanting or fearing entirely. That is an impossible task. Instead, they train themselves to desire only that which is truly good, which is virtue, and to be averse only to that which is truly bad, which is vice. Everything else, all the external prizes and punishments of life, are merely preferred or dispreferred, but they should never command the inner citadel. The philosopher Epictetus, whose teachings Marcus studied deeply, laid out this rule with absolute clarity. He wrote, "When you are about to undertake some action, remind yourself what kind of action it is. If you are going out to bathe, represent to yourself what happens in the bath, people splashing, others jostling, some being insulting, others stealing. And you will undertake the action more securely if you say to yourself, I want to bathe and to keep my will in harmony with nature. He was teaching that you must align your desire, your want to bathe, with a full acceptance of the reality that comes with it, the noise and the annoyance. You do not desire a perfect, silent bathing experience because that is not within your power. You desire only to act virtuously while you bathe. For Marcus, leading a complex empire, this discipline created a radical simplicity within. He did not desire an easy victory. He desired to command with courage and wisdom, whether he won or lost. He was not averse to the discomfort of a military campaign, but he was fiercely averse to acting with injustice or cowardice. His inner world was no longer tossed by every shift in fortune because his wants and his fears were anchored to the only things he truly controlled, his own character. Think of a modern desire, the craving for social validation. You post a photograph and find yourself refreshing the screen, your mood rising and falling with each new like or comment. You desire praise, an external event you cannot control. This desire is a recipe for anxiety. Now apply the discipline, realign your desire. Instead of wanting likes, desire only to express yourself authentically. Want only to share a moment of genuine beauty or truth as you see it. The outcome, the digital applause or silence, becomes a matter of indifference to your core peace. Or consider an aversion, the powerful urge to avoid a necessary but difficult conversation with a loved one. You are averse to the conflict, the potential for anger or tears. This aversion gives the conversation a monstrous power over you, casting a shadow over your days. Realign your aversion. Do not be averse to the temporary discomfort of the talk. Instead, be averse only to the vice of cowardice, to the failure of not acting with honesty and care for the relationship. The external event, the conversation, is now just a neutral stage upon which you can practice the virtue of courage. So what unhealthy desire or aversion holds a piece of your mind hostage today? Is it the longing for a promotion that defines your worth, or the fear of a solo endeavor that makes you shrink? What would it feel like to consciously release that external hook and transfer all your wanting and your fearing onto the single, solid ground of your own virtuous action? A lone star in the night sky is not truly alone. Its light is part of a constellation, its existence shaped by the same gravitational forces that govern the galaxy. Marcus Aurelius saw the entire universe in this way, as a single, living organism bound together by a rational principle the Stoics called sympatheia. He believed everything was woven into an intricate, interdependent web, from the emperor on his throne to the soldier in the field and the virus spreading through a city. This was not a cold, scientific fact for him, but a source of profound comfort and belonging. In his most isolated moments, making decisions that would ripple out to affect millions, he reminded himself that he was a vital part of this greater whole. He wrote in his meditations, all things are implicated with one another, and the bond is holy, and nothing is unconnected to anything else. For a man burdened by the weight of command, this perspective was a liberation from the illusion of separateness. His personal struggles with grief, his strategic worries on the frontier, were not private dramas but movements in a universal symphony. He saw his duty as aligning his own small, rational nature with the grand, rational nature of the cosmos itself. Your own life is a thread in this same vast tapestry. Every action you take, every word you speak, sends vibrations through the network. A moment of patience with a frustrated stranger, an act of integrity when no one is watching, a choice to respond with clarity instead of reactive anger. These are not insignificant. They are your unique contributions to the health of the whole system. So how does remembering that you are a part of a vast, interconnected system change your feeling about a personal problem? That solitary worry you carry, does it feel lighter when you consider it as one piece of a magnificent, unfolding pattern, a pattern that your courage and your character help to weave? You can pour your entire soul into a goal and still hold its outcome lightly. This is the essence of the reserve clause, an advanced Stoic practice that separates intense effort from anxious attachment. Marcus Aurelius embodied this principle on the battlefield. He would plan his military campaigns with absolute precision, moving legions and securing supply lines with the full force of his will. Yet in his mind, he coupled every action with a silent reservation if fate permits. He did everything in his power to secure victory, but he did not stake his inner peace upon it. He understood that the final result, whether a triumphant charge or a tactical retreat, was ultimately not his to command. The Stoic teacher Epictetus articulated this perfectly, advising that when you undertake any action, you should remind yourself of what kind of action it is. He suggested that as you set sail, you should say, "I will sail to this port if nothing prevents me." This reservation is not a lack of confidence, it is a profound recognition of reality. You control your effort, your strategy, your virtue in the attempt, but you do not control the storm, the market crash, or the decision of the hiring manager. Think of applying for your dream job. You research the company, you tailor your resume with care, you prepare for the interview with total dedication. You give it your absolute best. The reserve clause is the mental footnote you add to all that effort, the inner statement that says, "And I will be perfectly fine, my worth intact whether I receive the offer or not." This mental posture transforms the experience. It drains the desperation from your pursuit and replaces it with a calm, powerful focus. You perform not from a place of need, but from a place of purpose. So what important goal burns in your life right now? A project, a relationship, a personal milestone? How can you apply the reserve clause today, investing your full energy into the attempt while consciously uncoupling your serenity from the final result? The imperial court was a cacophony of demands, the battlefield a chorus of clashing steel and dying men. Yet Marcus Aurelius understood that the greatest clarity is born not from more noise, but from a deliberate cultivation of its opposite. He fiercely protected moments of profound silence and stillness, treating them as essential sustenance for his besieged mind. This was not a passive escape, but an active practice of seeking solitude to impose order on the internal chaos. Within that quiet space, the swirling fragments of thought could settle, allowing him to see his next move with unclouded vision. He wrote in his meditations, "Nowhere can you retreat to with more quiet or freedom than your own soul, especially when a man has within him such thoughts that he can dip into them and so at once gain complete ease." For him, this was the ultimate recharge, a way to step out of the relentless current of events and simply be. You can practice this same discipline, even amidst the digital noise and endless to-do lists of modern life. It does not require a week-long meditation retreat. It begins with reclaiming the small, interstitial moments, the 5 minutes before you check your phone in the morning, the quiet car ride without the radio, a short walk without headphones, or simply sitting on a park bench and watching the world without judgment. In these pockets of intentional quiet, your mind, like unsettled water, begins to clear. The urgent but unimportant distractions sink, and what remains is a reflection of what truly matters. So where can you find 5 minutes of true silence today to simply be with your thoughts, not to solve anything, but to let the internal dust settle and rediscover the quiet center that is always there? A just action often feels small and insignificant against the backdrop of a chaotic world. For Marcus Aurelius, the profound virtue of justice was not merely a matter of imperial decrees or legal codes. It was a deeply personal duty, a compass he carried into every single interaction, whether with a powerful senator in the forum or an enslaved servant in his camp. In an empire fractured by war and plague, where fear could easily breed cruelty and prejudice, his commitment to fairness and kindness became a stabilizing force, first within himself and then radiating outward. He understood that true justice began with how he treated the person directly in front of him. He wrote in his meditations that you can begin a new life by seeing the virtues you already have, and one of the first you should call upon is justice, which requires only that you speak the truth and do what is right according to the law of nature. This was his guiding principle for navigating the most challenging of all human landscapes, dealing with difficult people. He did not expect everyone to be virtuous, but he held himself to the standard of responding with reason and empathy, even when faced with insolence or betrayal. He saw the unjust person not as an enemy to be crushed, but as a misguided soul, someone acting from a place of ignorance about what is truly good. His task was not to reciprocate their error, but to model a better way. You can apply this same principle in the modern arena of your own daily life. Consider a recent minor disagreement, perhaps a tense exchange with a cashier or a frustrating conversation with a neighbor. The automatic reaction might be to match their tone, to defend your position with sharp words, but the Stoic practice of justice asks a different question. How can I act with fairness and kindness here, regardless of their behavior? It might mean pausing to consider the stress they might be under that you know nothing about. It could be choosing to de-escalate with a calm response instead of adding fuel to the fire. This small, conscious choice to be just, even in a seemingly inconsequential moment, fortifies your character and becomes a quiet rebellion against the pettiness of the world. So reflect on your own recent interactions. In what one conversation, however small, could you have been more fair or more kind, and what would that small act of personal justice have looked like in practice? Your greatest comfort might be your greatest weakness in disguise. Marcus Aurelius and the Stoics engaged in a radical practice known as voluntary self-denial, deliberately foregoing pleasures and comforts to build an immunity against future hardship. This was not about punishment or asceticism for its own sake, but a form of mental and emotional vaccination. By willingly exposing himself to minor discomforts, Marcus was building a reservoir of strength he could draw from when true calamity struck. He would practice eating simple soldier's rations, sleeping on a hard cot, or enduring the cold, not because he had to, but because he chose to. He was preparing his mind and body for the inevitable days when such conditions would not be a choice. His contemporary, the philosopher Seneca, powerfully advocated for this same exercise. He wrote, "Set aside a certain number of days during which you shall be content with the scantiest and cheapest fare, with coarse and rough dress, saying to yourself the while, 'Is this the condition that I feared?'" The goal is to prove to yourself, through direct experience, that you can not only survive but maintain your peace of mind, even when your comforts are stripped away. A modern parallel is the digital detox. You voluntarily put your phone away for an entire evening, resisting the compulsive pull to check notifications and scroll through feeds. The initial discomfort and boredom are real, but on the other side, you rediscover the quiet capacity of your own mind and a deeper connection to your immediate surroundings. Or consider the simple act of taking a cold shower. For 1 minute, you choose the bracing shock of cold water over the soothing embrace of warmth. It is a small, daily victory over your desire for ease, reinforcing the powerful truth that you are in command of your reactions. So what small comfort can you voluntarily give up for a short period to strengthen your self-discipline and gratitude? It might be that second cup of coffee, the streaming service you mindlessly watch, or the heated seat in your car on a cold morning. This minor act of refusal is not about deprivation, but about reclaiming your sovereignty from the gentle tyranny of habit. Every single thought that enters your mind demands a moment of inspection before you grant it entry. Marcus Aurelius called this practice procession, a vigilant attention to the flood of mental impressions that shape our reality. He understood that our initial, raw reactions are often irrational, fueled by ego, fear, or misunderstanding, and that accepting them uncritically is the first step toward inner chaos. This disciplined attention is the very gatekeeper of the inner citadel, the essential first filter for the discipline of perception. He trained himself to intercept these impressions at the door, to hold them up to the light of reason, and to ask a simple, brutal question: is this thought not only true, but is it helpful? Is it aligned with virtue? In his meditations, he provides a clear instruction for this practice, writing, "Remember that it is not the man who gives abuse or blows who insults, but the view we take of these things as insulting." The impression of an insult is just that, an impression, a piece of data that you have the power to label or to dismiss. He learned to see the initial sting of a betrayal or the flash of anger at a setback not as commands to act, but as neutral signals to be evaluated. Consider the modern reflex of checking your email and seeing a message from your boss that your immediate judgment labels as harsh and critical. Your heart rate jumps, your face flushes, and a narrative of injustice and defensiveness instantly unfolds in your mind. This is the automatic impression. The practice of procession is to insert a single, conscious pause between that impression and your reaction. In that space, you examine the thought. You read the email again, stripping it of the emotional tone you projected onto it. You look for the bare facts. The email states a deadline was missed and requests a meeting. Your initial impression of a personal attack begins to crumble under the weight of objective scrutiny. By questioning the validity of the thought, you reclaim the power to choose a response rooted in clarity, not in reflexive anger. So here is your challenge, the core of this ancient practice. Can you catch your next negative automatic thought and question its validity before believing it? The next time a wave of anxiety or resentment washes over you, can you pause and ask, is this thought absolutely true, or is it just a story my fears are telling me? This moment of interrogation is where you stop being a passenger to your impulses and start being the pilot of your mind. A philosophy that remains trapped in a book is a song that is never sung. Marcus Aurelius left us no public speeches or grand philosophical treatises. His words were written in the dead of night, in a private journal meant for his eyes only, a relentless effort to align his immense power with the principles of Stoic virtue. For him, philosophy was not an academic subject to be debated, but a daily discipline to be lived. Every decision on the battlefield, every judgment in the imperial court, was an opportunity to put his deepest beliefs into action. The Greek Stoics called this the unity of philosophy and life, insisting that wisdom without corresponding action is not wisdom at all, but mere intellectual posturing. The true measure of these ideas is not how eloquently you can discuss them, but how resiliently you can apply them when your plans fall apart, when someone treats you unfairly, or when anxiety tightens its grip. This is the final, practical challenge that transforms intellectual understanding into unshakable character. So as we near the end of this journey into the mind of a philosopher-king, the most important question now belongs to you. What single Stoic idea from this video will you commit to putting into practice before the day is over? Will it be the view from above to shrink a looming worry, the discipline of perception to reframe a setback, or a moment of mindful focus on the task directly in front of you? Your choice and your action are what will turn these ancient words into your own modern fortress. the universe is not a storm of random chaos, but a vast, intelligent order. This was the bedrock of Marcus Aurelius' entire worldview, a principle the Stoics called the Logos. He saw a rational, divine reason woven through all of existence, from the orbit of the planets to the rise and fall of empires, and even to the painful spread of the plague. This was not a blind religious faith, but a philosophical conviction that everything, even the most brutal events, happened as part of a coherent and purposeful whole. He wrote in his meditations, "Everything harmonizes with me which is harmonious to you, O universe. Nothing for me is too early or too late, which is in due time for you." This belief transformed his perception of fate. The barbarian invasions were not meaningless attacks, but part of the necessary friction of a changing world. The death of his children was not a cruel joke of the gods, but a heartbreaking part of the natural cycle of life that governs all things. His trust in the Logos allowed him to accept his personal role in this grand design without bitterness, to see himself as a single, willing note in a universal symphony. This is the ultimate perspective shift, moving from seeing yourself as a victim of random misfortune to an active participant in a meaningful process. How would your attitude toward your current struggles change if you trusted, deeply trusted, they were part of a meaningful, larger whole? What if that difficult person, that financial strain, that personal loss, were not errors in the system, but essential threads in a tapestry you cannot yet see the full pattern of? This trust does not numb the pain, but it infuses it with a purpose that can carry you through the darkest hours. Marcus Aurelius never found a world free from chaos, but he did find a mind clear enough to navigate it. His clarity was not a gift of circumstance, it was the hard-won result of a daily inner practice. He did not wait for the wars to end or the plague to lift. Instead, he returned each day to the fundamental disciplines that fortified his soul. He drew a bright line between what was within his power and what was not, pouring his energy only into his own judgments and actions. He learned to love his fate, seeing every setback as the raw material for building his character, and he would repeatedly zoom out to that cosmic perspective, reminding himself that his immediate struggles were small against the vast sweep of eternity. These were not separate tricks, but interconnected tools in a single workshop for the soul. The ultimate goal was always the same: to transform the chaos of the outer world into the unshakable clarity of an inner citadel. He captured this entire philosophy in one of his most famous lines, writing, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This is the resilient peace that awaits when you stop trying to control the storm and start commanding your own ship. The real work begins not in understanding these ideas, but in applying them. So as we leave the Roman frontier and return to your own life, I challenge you to choose just one of these principles to live with for the next 7 days. Will it be the view from above to shrink a worry, the practice of Amor Fati to embrace a difficulty, or the discipline of perception to see a neutral fact instead of a catastrophe? Your journey toward clarity starts with a single, conscious choice. Let me know in the comments which Stoic practice resonated most with you and how you plan to use it. Your insight might be the very thing that helps another person find their own path to peace.